this section, I want to talk about the constitution of a corporation, which is dealt with in the book at page 597, 598, and 599. And let's assume that we're in Ontario and we're incorporating under the Ontario Business Corporations Act. The document that creates the corporation is something called the Articles of Incorporation. It's a form. I may send one out to you, and so you can see that. I'll maybe make a note to myself to do that right now. But anyway, it's a form that you fill out really the blanks and you sign it and you pay a government fee. And that is the birth certificate, if you like, of the corporation. It creates this legal person once you do that. The contents of the Articles of Incorporation are set out on a checklist on page 597. That is there's the name, the place where the registered office is situated, the classes and maximum number of shares that the corporation is authorized to issue. If there are 2 or more classes of shares, the rights, restrictions attached to each class, the number of directors, any restriction on the transfer of shares, and so on. That's all set for you, and I urge you to read that on page 597. Now, you want to pick a corporate name. What you have to do there is you can't get a corporate name that's confusing with another corporation. So many names nowadays are taken up. They're confusing. What you have to do is, if you have a corporate name, is to do a name search to make with the government to make sure the name you're proposing is not similar to another corporate name. So, a lot of people dream up very weird names for corporations now. Otherwise, if you can't think of a name, you can get a number name and a numbered corporation. That doesn't mean it's any less of a corporation than any other corporation. It's just that it has a number, and you may be able to carry on business under another name, but you have to have the numbered corporation as the name of the corporation. So the first document of the constitution of a corporation is the Articles of Incorporation. That creates and gives birth to the corporation, if you like. The next step is the corporation is bylaws of the corporation. They are passed as soon as the corporation is incorporated. The directors and shareholders have meetings. We'll talk about them later on, but there's a board of directors and a shareholders meeting that pass bylaws. The directors may pass them first, and then they're confirmed by the shareholders meeting or whatever. The purpose of the bylaws is to regulate the ongoing day-to-day affairs of the business of the corporation. That is, meetings of directors and shareholders and borrowing money and so on. The provisions that are often included in typical bylaws are set out at page 599, and you can read through that. I'm not going to read it back to you, but it's right in the middle of page 599, which are the typical bylaws, the subject matter of the typical bylaws of the corporation. I'm going to move on in the next section shortly to deal with types of business corporations, but I'm going to ask you to read again that's page 600. Public, I want you to read about public and private corporations, and then moving on to corporate capital on page 603. And really, I spend quite some time on the distinction between bonds, shares, and bonds under corporate securities on page 604, 605, 606. Those are very important pages. So in any lecture that I'm giving, I urge you to read the materials first, then listen to my summary of the materials, and then read them again after you've listened to my my lecture. So the next segment then is we're going to start with the types of business corporations, and then corporate capital on page 603 towards the end of the chapter.